My name is Sophia Soliman from the online class, and today we'll be talking about the cinematic genius of Beauty and the Beast. We're going to start off with the narrative. So, first things first, the prologue. The prologue uses stained glass to establish the initial flashback and the conflict of the film. So, fun fact, Howard Ashman wanted to have a scene where you see Prince Adam transformed into the Beast, but the directors felt it was too ridiculous and really cheesy. So, instead, they chose the stained glass. They felt that the stained glass was a mirror pun, haha, to the opening storybooks of previous Disney films. So from that point on, the film is generally in chronological order. It's never explicitly stated in the film, but we can assume that the events in the film are under a year because of the changing seasons. So we can also discuss the parallel editing in the film. Parallel editing is mostly used to keep the viewer updated with Gaston and what plans he's concocting. So, for example, here you have Belle and Beast arguing, and it's kind of a change in their relationship. And then you have some parallel editing where you see Gaston concocting that new plan to force Belle to marry him. And then after that, you see Belle and Beast's relationship take on a more romantic side. Another example of parallel editing, it's an even better example, is near the end of the film, and it's where the mob storms the castle. So first off, at the first line, you have Belle and Maurice locked in their house, and then the mob, as in the second, you can see in the second picture, storming the castle. Then you see Beast just ultimately giving up. Then the mob goes to the castle, and their initial fight with the enchanted creatures ensues. And then you have that strange apparatus that saves Belle and Maurice. And then again, that fight continues. So that first line just kind of, it's still parallel editing, but it's setting up and preparing the viewer for the next set of parallel editing. That first line is very spaced out and it's a little bit lengthier. Once you get into the second diagonal line I have set up for you, the parallel editing is a lot quicker and faster. So first you have Gaston, a few seconds of just Gaston looking through the castle, finding the Beast, and then a very comedic scene of the creatures and the mob battling, and then again a few seconds of Belle and Maurice going to the castle, and then another comedic scene of where the creatures win. And then that last picture I have there, you see Belle arriving as Gaston and Beast fight. So what this does is that it splits up very serious and darker, very anticipatory scenes, such as Gaston and Belle, with very humorous and lighthearted scenes, such as the fighting. So the film also uses real-time and summer relationships. So because the film showcases a time period of about a year, there's definitely some summer relationship used, but we also use real time. So for example, for real time, you have the scene in which Beast gives Belle the library, one of my favorites. And for summer relationship, the scene after Beast battle with the wolves. And there you have a picture of Belle almost leaving Beast. I can't even believe that she would even consider it, but thankfully she did not. And fun fact, the Oval Reading Room of the Richelieu Building in France is the model for Beast's library. And next off, we're going to talk about sound. So most animated films naturally focus a lot on sound. It's quite important. So in Beauty and the Beast, we use a lot of diegetic and on-screen sounds. And there isn't many non-diegetic sounds, though there are some off-screen sounds. So the film is a Broadway-style musical, which is unique from other Disney films. So the songs in the film have two primary purposes. You have to further the plot and to entertain. So naturally, this is a children's movie, but they still do a very good job of ensuring that the songs do one, the other, or both. So some songs to further the plot are Belle, Something There, and Mob Song, and some songs to entertain the viewer are Be Our Guest and Human Again. So fun fact, Human Again was written in the original film, but it was eventually cut. After the film was released in the Broadway version, they brought Human Again back, but what happened was when they released the film in the 2002 IMAX DVD release, they felt that they should bring it back as a special edition of the film. So if you watch the film and you do see Human Again, it's a likely post 2002, and if it's not, it is before 2002. Little fun fact. And another fun fact is that Be Our Guest it was actually originally written for Maurice. When the creators, once they heard it, they felt that it was too good a song to pass up and use for a minor character such as Maurice, which is who is Belle's father. So instead, they changed some pronouns, rewrote some words, and changed it for Belle. So we'll talk more about the specific concept later, but the film is animated, so you don't really have the actors' facial expressions and stuff like that shown. So their voice is very important. So here we're going to talk about acting. So the voice actress for Belle is Paige O'Hara. So again, the film doesn't have any live action actors, so they both use animation and the voice actor's ability in tandem to create a very strong acting capability. So we'll talk about the voice acting here, and in the next slide, we'll talk more about the animation. So, one fun fact is that Jodie Benson, the voice of Ariel, was actually considered for the role of Belle. The creators eventually felt that they decided they wanted someone more European sounding, so Jodie Benson did not get the part. That said, they used the same live action model, Sherry Stoner, who we'll see a picture in the next slide. She was the live actress model for Ariel, so you still have some similarities between Belle and Ariel. The creators also used European actresses as an inspiration for Belle. So Vivian Leigh from Gone with the Wind, which we were able to watch, and Audrey Hepburn. They were both models. And ultimately, Paige O'Hara was chosen. So what's cool is that for Paige O'Hara, her look helped inspire the look of Belle, while for Robbie Benson, the voice actor for Beast, his look did not inspire the look of Beast. So during casting, Paige O'Hara had a hair on her face and she brushed it aside, and the animators liked it so much they put it in the movie. So if you look at the bottom picture on the right, you see that little strand of hair in Belle's face, and in that scene, she moves it aside, and that's the scene that they modeled after Paige O'Hara. So another fun fact is that, spoiler alert, at the end scene for Beast's death, O'Hara actually cried actual tears. So the director was like, "Are you okay?" And she it was like a switch flipped, and she was like completely fine. She's like, "I'm acting, it's fine." So here at the top left, you have Sherry Stoner, who is the live action model. So for Belle's personality, the screenwriter Linda Wolverton says that she modeled some of Belle's characteristics after Katharine Hepburn's adaptation of Jo March in the 1933 Little Women. So that's a fun fact. Some people think that Wolverton was inspired by Katharine Hepburn herself. That is false. It is by her adaptation of Jo March. And another fun fact is that James Baxter looked at the work of French Impressionist artist Degas for Belle's mannerisms. So Degas focused a lot on dancers, as you can see above on the right-hand side. And so throughout the film, you can see that Belle kind of walks like a dancer. So at the bottom, left and middle, you see some concept art for Belle. And as you can see, she's very feminine, beautiful, and aristocratic looking. One of their problems for Belle was that they wanted to create a character who was very beautiful but didn't know it. So I think they did well doing that. So we now have our second actor, Robbie Benson, and Robbie Benson is the voice of Beast. Above you have the 1991 picture of him around the time of the filming, and at the bottom is more a few years later, not exactly modern day, but a few years later. So for Beast, his casting was more difficult because they were looking for someone rough and robust voice that could be soft and gentle later on in the film. They wanted to use the voice, I should say, to capture the change in character of Beast throughout the film. So naturally, that's a very hard thing to do. So instead, they cast Robbie Benson, and they actually altered his voice with panther growls. So at the beginning of the film, his voice is very gruff and growly with the panther growls. But later in the film, there are no panther growls, and during the songs, his voice is much different. Again, there are no panther growls. So specifically in Something There, I feel like, I don't know why, but that song, just specifically, you can tell that his voice is a lot smoother and less growly. So while Paige O'Hara inspired the look of Belle, Robbie Benson definitely did not. Once he was casted, Glenn Keane, who was the animator for Beast, was expressly forbidden from meeting Robbie Benson because the directors were terrified that Keane would simply animate Benson rather than Beast. So again, overall, I think that the actors did an amazing job, especially because they can't utilize facial expressions or anything like that. So here we have some concept art for Beast that I think it's really, really interesting because one of their struggles was creating a character who is fearsome and scary, but was realistic that a girl whose name literally means beauty could fall in love with. So at the bottom right, you have that picture. I love it. Definitely totally different than what he looks like now. At the bottom left, you can see some more concept art and fun fact. I think this is a mention in mise en scène, but around the castle, um, the different gargoyles are actually early concept art for Beast. Um, so Beast was ultimately created by combining a bunch of different animals. So you have at the top left that graphic of the different animals. So lion, buffalo, gorilla, human eyes, because that was the one thing that was consistent. It's how Bell identified him post spell. Boar, bear, wolf, etc. So for mise en scène, it is definitely inspired by. I just want to say overall that for mise en scène that there are French influences, but for the regular viewer, um, most wouldn't really notice that it's in France or care. Once you fine tooth comb the film, you definitely notice all the French influences and influence of the period. But just as a casual observer, some of it will go over your head. So, fun fact: the castle for Beast is based on the Chateau of Chambord in the Loire Valley of France, and it was actually that same castle that inspired the author of Sleeping Beauty to write his tale. Um, and the creators actually traveled to this valley to get inspiration for the film. So the film did take place in France in a castle. And one of my favorite quotes from the film, where Cogsworth makes a totally cringeworthy pun about the pseudo facade and the minimalist Rococo design and the unusual inverted vaulted ceilings and the pun. And as I always say, if it's not Baroque, don't fix it. I just think that's great. But he's absolutely right because there is Rococo designs and it actually is quite indicative of the neoclassic Baroque period. So even though it's a really funny pun, it's quite accurate. So again, that fun fact of Beast around the castle. And another thing is that the creators actually um, made less detailed versions of famous paintings by Rembrandt, Goya, and Vermeer, which I'll show you in the next slide. So the costumes as well were very subtle for the film. Specifically, uh, in 1989, they created a prologue, and it was created by Richard Purdom, and it was very French. It was very 18th century French style, powdered wigs, large dresses, the whole shebang. But that original prologue was very accurate to the original tale. So Belle is less headstrong, less independent, and more Cinderella-like. And you have the evil stepmother. You have Gaston as a aristocrat that Belle's stepmother wants her to marry, etc. So what happened was Jeffrey Katzenberg, the chairman to Walt Disney Studios at the time, didn't like it, cut it. Purdom was outraged and quit, and the French design was abandoned. After that, that's when Linda Wolverton was signed on, and they kind of had that new, still French, but less so, design. And yeah, so overall at the end, you do get French influences. It's very apparent, but it's not in your face. So at the bottom right, you have some concept art for the castle. I think most screen caps of the castle is too dark to see any detail, so this is a really good way to see the different pictures. At the top, you see a picture of Belle and again, Baxter and Hen. They turn to artists like Barini, and they also try to model Belle after those classic Baroque artists. So here at the top left, I believe it was neoclassic, Baroque, and at the right you see Rococo design. And you can kind of definitely see how it compares to the actual appearance of the castle. At the top right, you have the Vermeer, actually. So that's a Vermeer girl with a pearl earring in one of the scenes of the film. It's in a white box there. And it's very less detailed. It's very hard to see, but you do see the blue, the kind of gold headband thing, and the outfit. So I just think that's super cool. And another picture, you have Jean Fragonard and his picture, the swing. The picture in the film is actually inverted. So as you can see, the statue's on the right, and the picture of the original swing, the statue's on the left. So that's the only difference. So, one of the themes of the film is do not judge a book by its cover, or appearances are deceiving, or beauty is found within, that whole kind of overarching concept. So, here we have a character foil of Beast and Gaston. So, for Gaston, in either film, he would definitely be the protagonist. I mean, he's strong, handsome, he's well liked by the entire town, and he's a good hunter. But he is conceited, jealous, and just plain evil. So, this is a little bit, Beauty and the Beast has a little bit of a social commentary in that the town really judges others on appearance rather than personality. Because if Gaston, if Gaston's outward appearance reflected his inwards appearance, he would be hideous. So we can kind of see this very subtle social commentary, especially in the songs. So in the mob song, you have the quote, "We don't like what we don't understand. In fact, it scares us." So um, it's just a very serious concept slipped into a children's movie. I love that. So another quote is in the Belle song, and it's the most beautiful girl in town that makes her the best. So that's a quote from Gaston. So he's basically equating beauty to value, which is definitely not something that you want to do. And another quote from the Belle song from the townspeople this time, it's a pity and a sin she doesn't quite fit in. So they remark that she's very, very beautiful, and that's her pro, but her cons is that she like loves reading, and that's super weird and weird, you know. For Beast, however, he is a monster by his own admission. His outward appearance is very scary looking. He's mean. He lives in a castle. He imprisons everyone. So normally you would think that he's the antagonist, but he's actually very selfless and kind and gentle. Well, not at the beginning, at the end. But his inward appearance does not reflect his outward. So it's his character arc and his dynamic that really changes him from a loveless, selfish creature to a kind of gentle beast. So we learn that the good person gets the girl and the jerk gets death. So very subtle Disney karma for you. In the prologue, it's kind of revealed. The prologue reveals a lot, by the way. We'll talk more about the prologue in the next slide. But the prologue has a beautiful quote. But she warned him not to be deceived by appearances, for beauty is found within. And again, Farouk could have learned to love a beast, and that's kind of the last line of the prologue. And it's funny because no one could learn to love a beast. A beast is a person who is conceited, jealous, and evil, such as Gaston. So I think that this quote is saying no one could love a beast. And by beast, we are referring to your inward appearance, your inward beauty, not the outer. And here we have the other theme of the film. So I do not speak Latin, but I can assume the theme that I chose is Vincit, qui se vincit. So one day I was watching the film and I noticed that little banner in one of the title slides of the prologue. And I looked it up on Google, and it means he conquers who conquers himself. And basically, this means that a person's true potential is unleashed when they have a greater understanding of themselves and a great self control. So Beast really had to learn that self control. I mean, before he had no love in his heart, he was selfish and mean, and he was unforgiving almost. So one of the scenes I chose to kind of explore this concept was the one at the bottom right here, and it's when the Beast lets her go and gives up his own freedom and ability to be a man um, for her own happiness. So if he was the man he was before the curse, when he was cursed, he would have never let Belle go. He would have locked her up and kept her because he would have viewed her as a possession, not unlike Gaston. But by allowing her to leave, he cemented his change from someone who's selfish to selfless, and that's where he truly conquered himself. Um, like, just the message is that love changes people. Just that you want to be a better person for someone that you love, and you want what's best for them. And I think that's absolutely beautiful. So the directors are, of course, very influential, but I don't think they had as much of a presence in the film as other films, just because the team that worked on this film was really crisscrossing jobs, and um, they just worked really well together. So we have two directors, Gary Trousdale and Kirk Wise. Both were born in around the 1960s, still alive today. They worked on films such as Hunchback of Notre Dame, Lion King, and Atlantis, and their directorial debut was actually Beauty and the Beast. So both later moved on to different things. Trousdale to DreamWorks, and Wise helped make Spirited Away in the American version. So a fun fact is that Trousdale and Wise are actually caricatures in the film. So in that middle picture, you see that Belle leaving the bookstore, and those two men outside the bookstore, On the left, you have Trousdale, and on the right, you have Wise. And on the right picture, you see both of them in person. So, to review the film overall, I love it. It's my favorite film of all time. I hate that the filmmakers didn't give the beast the name, and that is probably my only complaint. They just never gave him a name. I mean, the fandom has adopted the name Prince Adam, but it was Prince Adam was a name created by a non-Disney CD-ROM company, and they just wanted to give Adam a name. So technically, Prince Adam is not the confirmed Disney name, but I think that out of respect for Beast, we should definitely just call him Prince Adam. So overall, I love the characters. I think that they're so dynamic, as you can see in the middle left picture. You see them arguing, and like I say below, Disney movies tend to be very watered down and just constantly happy and um, not very realistic to relationships in general. But as you can see here, I mean, Belle and Beast have arguing, they have dynamic, they have intensity and passion, and that's something that they don't explore too much in Disney films because, again, they are for children. So I think that this film is successful because it not only appeals to kids with the fun Broadway songs and the beautiful girl and beautiful guy and whole storyline, but it appeals to adults because of the subtle societal issues the film has, um, the beautiful songs again that further the plot, and the complex characters. So on the right, that picture there, I have that exact picture as a poster above my bed, and I have absolutely no shame. So, last thing that I want to bring up, just some more fun facts, even though I'm sure you're probably sick of them by now. So, Beauty and the Beast was actually the first film to be nominated for Best Picture in 1991, up in 2009. So, Disney was actually failing up until The Little Mermaid. The Little Mermaid kind of fueled the success for Beauty and the Beast as well. So, animation continued to grow at that point. So, in 2001, they introduced the Best Animated Picture category. And there you have the majority of animated picture awards going. So it's very unique that Beauty and the Beast did not win in that category. It won for Best Picture. Belle's famous gold ball gown is based off of Audrey Hepburn's in Roman Holiday. So earlier we talked about how Belle was inspired by Audrey Hepburn, and even the appearance, you can just see a little bit of that. So Howard Ashman was the lyricist for the film. He had a bunch of great ideas, as one of them one being having the objects in the film able to talk and have their own personality. So sadly, he did die before he saw the final film, but the film is dedicated to Ashman. So I highly recommend looking up the dedication. It's beautiful. And my least favorite fun fact, the last scene of the film is actually taken from Sleeping Beauty. Um, so as you can see on the right, it's pretty much verbatim from Sleeping Beauty. And if you look closely at Prince Adam, you can see his face is pretty much Prince Devon's. So overall, thank you so much for watching this film review analysis. It is definitely a long one, but I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned some stuff, and thank you. Thank you so much.